all the names of the people that were involved in this process. And again, you have to question, why wasn't I put through the same risk management board that everybody else was put through, including members of my family?
Princess Diana's death wasn't the end of her story, but the beginning of her ultimate revenge. For decades, the royal family buried secrets deeper than the crown jewels themselves. But now, her own son has shattered the sacred code of silence, unleashing revelations that threaten to destroy the monarchy from within. Today, we're diving into the shocking truth behind Diana's war against the crown, a battle that began long before her tragic death and continues to this day through the explosive confessions of Prince William himself. Are you ready for the truth they never wanted you to know? Our story doesn't begin with a heartbreak. August 30th, 1961, Sandringham Estate, a baby girl enters the world. But instead of celebration, there's profound disappointment echoing through the Spencer family halls. Diana wasn't wanted, not really. Her parents had desperately hoped for a boy, someone to carry on the Spencer name, someone to heal their fractured marriage. Instead, they got a daughter who would one day shake the very foundations of the British monarchy. Her mother, Frances, was so desperate for a male heir that she sought medical intervention in London, trying everything to produce the son her husband craved. Can you imagine growing up knowing you were a disappointment from the moment you drew breath? But here's what makes this story even more tragic. Diana's younger brother Charles would later describe these desperate attempts as embarrassing and upsetting, revealing how this obsession with having a boy created the cracks that would eventually destroy their family. And destroy it, it did. Diana was just 7 years old when her world exploded. Picture this, a little girl playing in her London home when suddenly everything she knew as normal vanished forever. Her parents' marriage crumbled in one of the most vicious custody battles the British aristocracy had ever witnessed. But here's where the story takes a sinister turn. During what should have been an innocent Christmas visit to her father's house, young Diana discovered she would never return to her mother. Her father had orchestrated the perfect trap, using a family holiday to permanently separate a daughter from her mother. The custody battle was brutal, and Diana's father didn't fight fair. He enlisted the help of his mother-in-law, Lady Fermoy, Diana's own grandmother, who testified against her own daughter in court. Imagine the betrayal Diana felt, learning that even her grandmother had chosen sides against her mother. This wasn't just a divorce. This was the systematic destruction of a little girl's sense of security, trust, and belonging. And if you think that was traumatic enough, wait until you hear what happened next. Her father remarried Rain, Countess Spencer, and Diana's relationship with her stepmother was so toxic that in a moment of pure rage, Diana actually pushed Rain down a flight of stairs. This wasn't just teenage rebellion, this was a young woman fighting back against a system that had already betrayed her multiple times over. Despite the chaos consuming her family life, something remarkable was happening to Diana. While her academic performance suffered, likely due to the emotional trauma she was enduring, she discovered something that would define her entire life, an extraordinary gift for connecting with people. At West Heath Girls' School, Diana received an award for community service, not for her grades, not for her royal connections, but for her genuine dedication to helping others. Her teachers noticed something special, this quiet, caring young woman who seemed to naturally gravitate toward those in need. But here's what's fascinating. Even as she excelled in caring for others, Diana was struggling to care for herself. Her brother Charles described her as quiet but very caring, a description that perfectly captures the duality that would define her entire life. By 18, Diana was living independently in a London flat, working as a nursery teacher's assistant, cleaning houses, and even working as a party hostess. She was doing everything she could to create a normal life for herself, never knowing that fate was about to thrust her into the most watched, most scrutinized existence on Earth. because in 1977 at a shooting party, she would meet a man 13 years her senior, a man who would make her the most famous woman in the world and ultimately destroy her. The meeting between Charles and Diana wasn't fate, it was calculation. When 29-year-old Prince Charles first encountered 16-year-old Diana at a house party, she was dating her sister Sarah. But Charles noticed something about this young woman that intrigued him. Not love, let's be clear about that, but potential. Here's what the fairy tale version never tells you. Charles was under immense pressure to marry. The heir to the throne needed a wife who could produce heirs, and Diana fit a very specific profile. She was young, she was aristocratic enough to be acceptable, she was naive enough to be malleable, and most importantly, she was virginal enough to pass royal scrutiny. But Charles's heart belonged to someone else entirely, Camilla Parker Bowles. Even as he was courting Diana, he was still emotionally and physically involved with the woman he truly loved.
Say she didn't know, she did. She could say that, but in fact you actually said
yes, quite
yes,
promptly.
before you went to Australia?
Yes.
They were to sit on it for 3 weeks.
The most telling moment came during their engagement interview in 1981. When asked if they were in love, Diana immediately said yes. Charles's response? Whatever in love means. Think about that for a moment. A man about to marry a 20-year-old woman in front of the entire world couldn't even pretend to be in love with her. But the trap was already set. The wedding was planned, the world was watching, and Diana was about to discover that fairy tales don't exist, especially not in the House of Windsor. July 29, 1981. St. Paul's Cathedral. 750 million people watching worldwide as Diana Spencer became Princess Diana in what was supposed to be the wedding of the century. But even on her wedding day, the cracks were already showing. Diana made a shocking decision that sent ripples through the establishment. She refused to include the word obey in her wedding vows. The media called it romantic feminism. The truth was far darker. It was her first act of defiance against a system she was already beginning to understand would try to control every aspect of her life. Within days of the honeymoon, Diana's fairy tale crumbled completely. Charles returned to his regular routine, which included regular contact with Camilla. Diana found herself alone in vast royal residences, abandoned by her new husband, struggling with bulimia, and battling severe depression. And then came the moment that proves just how desperate Diana had become. During her first pregnancy, while battling eating disorders and receiving virtually no emotional support from Charles or the royal family, Diana threw herself down the stairs at Sandringham House. Think about that. A pregnant woman so desperate and alone that she tried to harm herself and potentially her unborn child. Miraculously, baby William survived, but Diana's cry for help was completely ignored. When William was born in 1982, there was a brief moment of hope. Charles was present at the birth and seemed genuinely moved by becoming a father. But that moment of connection lasted about as long as a camera flash. If you thought Charles had already betrayed Diana enough, wait until you hear about Prince Harry's birth in 1984. This should have been another joyful milestone. Diana had kept Harry's gender secret throughout the pregnancy, hoping to create some anticipation and excitement with Charles. But when Harry was born, Charles's reaction was devastating. Not only was Charles disappointed that Harry wasn't the daughter he'd hoped for, but he made cruel comments about Harry's red hair, comments that implied the child might not even be his. This was the moment Diana's heart finally hardened against Charles completely. The naive young woman who had entered the marriage hoping for love was gone forever, replaced by someone who understood she was in a war for her very survival. And so began Diana's quiet quest for revenge, a campaign that would outlast her life and ultimately be carried forward by her own sons. By the late 1980s, Diana had learned to fight back, and she was excellent at it. While Charles continued his affair with Camilla, Diana began her own strategic relationships. But more importantly, she began cultivating the one weapon that could destroy the royal family: public opinion. Diana understood something the royals never did. In the age of mass media, the person who controls the narrative controls everything. And Diana was a master storyteller. In 1992, the war went nuclear. Prime Minister John Major announced Charles and Diana's separation to Parliament, but both sides continued fighting through the press.
It is announced from Buckingham Palace that, with regret, the Prince and Princess of Wales have decided to separate. Their Royal Highnesses have no plans to divorce, and their constitutional positions are unaffected.
In 1995, Diana delivered the kill shot. Her panorama interview with Martin Bashir included the most devastating line in royal history. "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded."
Do you think Mrs. Parker Bowles was a factor in the breakdown of your marriage?
Well, there were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded.
23 million people watched Diana systematically destroy Charles's reputation on live television. She didn't just tell her story, she controlled it completely. August 31st, 1997. A tunnel in Paris. Princess Diana dies in a car crash, and the world mourns the loss of the people's princess. But Diana's death wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of her ultimate revenge. Because Diana had spent years teaching her sons exactly who was responsible for her pain. And now, decades later, Prince William has broken the royal family's most sacred rule, the Code of Silence. In Omid Scobie's explosive biography, Endgame, Prince William has revealed secrets that would have been unthinkable just years ago. He's confirmed suspicions about his mother's death, exposed the family's treatment of Diana, and systematically dismantled the carefully constructed royal narrative. Why would William do this? Because Diana's greatest victory wasn't becoming the people's princess. It was raising sons who would never forgive what was done to her. Prince Harry has been even more direct, publicly stating in interviews that the royal family and the media killed his mother. Not the car crash, the years of systematic emotional abuse that led to her desperate flight from the paparazzi that night. Today, as we watch the royal family struggle with scandal after scandal, as we see the brothers William and Harry torn apart by the same forces that destroyed their mother, we're witnessing the final act of Diana's revenge. She understood something that the establishment never grasped. Truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you bury it. And she made sure her sons would never let the world forget what really happened behind palace walls. Every time William speaks about his mother's treatment, every time Harry exposes the family's failures, every time the public chooses compassion over protocol, that's Diana winning from beyond the grave. The woman they tried to silence became the voice that will ultimately transform the monarchy forever. The girl who was unwanted from birth became the force that would reshape one of the world's oldest institutions. That's not just revenge, that's revolution. Since William and Harry began speaking their truth, the public reaction has been extraordinary. Millions of people around the world have finally understood that the fairy tale they were sold was actually a horror story. Social media exploded with support for Diana's sons and criticism of the institution that failed to protect her. The hashtag #Justice for Diana trends regularly. Documentary after documentary exposes new details about her treatment. And polling shows that public support for the monarchy is at historic lows, especially among younger generations who see Diana as the victim of an outdated, cruel system. Perhaps most tellingly, when Prince Harry stepped away from royal duties and moved to America with Meghan, millions of people supported his choice, understanding that he was refusing to let history repeat itself.
Whether I have an official role or not is irrelevant to the threats, risks, and impact on the reputation of the UK if something was to happen.
Diana Spencer entered the royal family as a naive teenager and died as a global icon. But her greatest achievement wasn't her charity work or her style. It was raising sons brave enough to tell the truth, no matter the cost. And that truth is still reshaping the world today. What do you think about Prince William's decision to break the royal code of silence? Was Diana's influence on her sons her greatest victory against the crown? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more shocking royal revelations that they never wanted you to know.